The old canvas duffel bag slumped against the wall, half full. I stared at it from the kitchen doorway, the smell of stale coffee hanging in the air. Another trip. Another week of my life handed over to the sterile corridors and antiseptic smell of the Springfield hospital. "You're packing light this time," Miranda said. She didn't look up from the kitchen sink, where she was scrubbing a pot with unnecessary force. Her voice was flat, like a stone skipping once on the water and sinking. "Gregory's doctors say it might just be a few days. They're adjusting his medication." I walked over and dropped a pair of socks into the bag. They're always adjusting something. From the porch, the rhythmic creak of the rocking chair was the only other sound. My father, Bernard, was out there. He'd been quiet all morning, just watching the street. At 89, Bernie didn't miss much, even when he pretended to be asleep. "Well, I hope it is just a few days," Miranda said. She slammed the pot onto the drying rack. "This house doesn't run itself, Arthur, and your father needs his prescriptions." "I know, Miranda, I know." I zipped the bag with a sharp, angry pull. "Ronald Shaw delivers, doesn't he? Just call the pharmacy. He'll drop them off." She stiffened. "I'd rather pick them up myself. I need to get out of this house anyway." I grabbed my keys from the hook. "Fine. Do whatever you want." I walked out onto the porch. Bernie stopped rocking and looked up at me, his eyes, clouded by age, still sharp. "Springfield again?" "Springfield again, Dad." I put my hand on his thin shoulder. "Gregory's having a rough time." "He's always having a rough time," Bernie grunted. He leaned in, his voice dropping. "You're having a rough time too, son. Don't forget that." I gave his shoulder a squeeze. "I'll be fine. You behave yourself. Call me if you need anything." "It's not me I'm worried about," he said, looking past me, through the screen door, at Miranda's silhouette in the kitchen. I kissed him on the top of his head, the white hair thin as spun silk. "I'll call tonight." I walked to my truck, threw the bag in the passenger seat, and didn't look back. The drive to Springfield was 2 hours of flat highway and buzzing tires. 2 hours to think. 2 hours to wish I were anywhere else. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The hospital was a symphony of quiet beeps and the squeak of rubber-soled shoes. Gregory was asleep, his breathing a shallow rattle in the dim room. I sat in the uncomfortable vinyl chair, the smell of disinfectant burning my nose. I pulled out my phone and dialed home. It rang 6 times before Miranda picked up. "What?" "Just checking in. I made it to Springfield. How are things?" "Fine." A pause. I heard a TV in the background. "Everything is just fine, Arthur. How's Gregory?" "The same. Sleeping." I lowered my voice. "Can I talk to Dad? Is he nearby?" There was a huff of air, a sound of impatience. "He's napping, Arthur. I'm not going to wake him up just to chat. He's fine. I gave him his dinner an hour ago." "Right. Okay, well, tell him I called." "I will. I have to go. My show is on." The line clicked dead. I stared at the phone. She'd hung up on me. I tried to brush it off. She was stressed. We were all stressed, but it felt cold, colder than usual. The next night, I tried again. This time she answered on the second ring, her voice surprisingly bright. "Hello? Hey, it's me. How's Dad?" "Oh, Arthur. He just went out. Said he wanted to walk down to the square before it got dark." "Out? By himself?" My father hadn't walked to the square by himself in over a year. "Miranda, is that a good idea? It's almost 8 o'clock." He insisted. "You know how stubborn he is." Her voice was light, breezy. "Don't worry so much. I've got everything under control here. You just focus on your brother. Yeah, okay. If he's back before 9, have him call me, no matter how late. Will do. Bye, Arthur. She hung up again. I looked at my sleeping brother, then at the glowing screen of the phone. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. My father wouldn't go for a walk at dusk. He hated being out after the sun went down. I waited until 10 the next morning. I called the house line, letting it ring and ring until the answering machine picked up. I hung up and dialed Miranda's cell. It went straight to voicemail. Panic, cold and sharp, pricked my neck. I called the house line again. This time, someone picked up on the 5th ring. Hello? The voice was weak, hesitant. Dad? Dad, is that you? Arthur? His voice was a bare whisper. I could hear him breathing, a shallow, wet sound. Oh, thank God. Dad, what's wrong? Are you okay? Where's Miranda? I don't know. She left. She left hours ago. What do you mean, she left? Is she at the store? No, she had a bag. She told me not to answer the phone. His voice cracked. Arthur, you need to come home. I'm on my way. What's going on? I can't talk now. I heard a door slam in the background. Bernie gasped. She's back. Arthur, please, just come back. It's not right here. Something is wrong. Dad, what's wrong? He's fine, Arthur. Miranda's voice, sharp and angry, suddenly took over the line. He's just confused. I was in the garden. Stop upsetting him. Put him back on the phone, Miranda. He's tired. He's going to lie down. I told you everything is under control. Stop calling every 5 minutes. The line went dead. I stood up, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked at my brother, sleeping peacefully, oblivious. A nurse glanced in. Is everything all right, Mr. Calloway? I have to go. A family emergency. I grabbed my jacket. My brother, just watch him. I'll be back tomorrow. Or I'll call. I didn't wait for her answer. I ran out of the room, down the hall, and burst through the hospital doors into the bright, unforgiving sunlight. I was speeding before I even left the parking lot. The 2-hour drive back to Salem felt like 10. My hands were clamped to the steering wheel, my knuckles white. Every scenario played out in my head. Had Bernie fallen? Was Miranda sick? Or was it something else? That cold feeling from the phone call was back, settling in my gut. I turned onto our street. The house looked normal, quiet. Miranda's car was in the driveway, but as I pulled up, I saw the front door. It was open. Just a crack, but open. Miranda was meticulous about locks. She locked the door if she was just walking to the mailbox. I parked the truck and got out, my boots crunching on the gravel. The house was silent. Too silent. No TV, no radio, not even the creak of Bernie's rocking chair. Miranda, I called out, pushing the door open. The entryway was empty. Dad? I walked into the living room. A glass was on the coffee table, a dark ring of condensation at its base, untouched. Miranda, Dad, I'm home. Silence. A prickle of fear ran up my spine. I walked toward the back of the house. I checked Bernie's room first. The bed was made, the room empty and tidy. I headed for the kitchen. Maybe they were on the back porch. The house felt still, holding its breath. As I passed the hallway to our bedroom, I heard it. A sound so out of place it stopped me dead. A low, quiet laugh. A woman's laugh. Miranda. Then a man's voice, murmuring something I couldn't catch. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't Bernie's. It wasn't the TV. I moved slowly, placing each foot down with care, like a hunter stalking prey. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I put my hand on the wood, my heart a trapped bird against my ribs. I pushed the door open just another inch. The world stopped. Miranda was in our bed. Her back was to me, but I'd know those shoulders anywhere. She was laughing, her head tilted back, and with her, his hands on her, was Ronald Shaw. Shaw, the pharmacist. The man who came over for barbecues. The man who always asked, "How's the family, Arthur?" He was kissing her neck, his shirt tossed carelessly on my armchair. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. It was like watching a movie of someone else's life. This wasn't real. This couldn't be my wife. My bed. "He won't be back for days," Miranda giggled, her voice thick. "Gregory's probably clinging to him. We have all the time in the world." Rage, pure and black, surged up, choking me. I was going to kill him. I was going to tear him apart with my bare hands. I took a step forward, my hand balling into a fist. "Arthur, don't." A hand, frail but strong, grabbed my arm. I spun around, ready to strike. It was Bernie. He was standing right behind me, his face a mask of grief. He must have been in his room, heard me come in, and followed me. He'd seen it. He'd seen me see it. He put a trembling finger to his lips. "Not like this, son. Not like this." He pulled me, his grip surprisingly firm, back down the hall, away from the door, away from the sounds of their laughter. He dragged me through the kitchen and out onto the front porch, slamming the screen door behind us. I collapsed into the wicker chair, the air punching out of my lungs. "Dad, I know," he said, his voice choked. He sank into his rocking chair, which gave a painful groan. "I know, Arthur. I've known for months." I stared at him, my mind unable to process the words. "Months? You knew?" He nodded, his eyes watering. "I tried to tell you. On the phone. I tried to warn you." He looked down at his liver-spotted hands. She said if I ever told you, she'd put me in that place. The nursing home. She said you'd believe her over me, that I was just a confused old man." The rage was gone, replaced by a vast, hollow emptiness. My wife of 40 years, threatening my father to cover her affair. "When you'd leave for Springfield," Bernie whispered, "he'd come over. Sometimes she'd go out. Running errands," she'd say. But she'd come back hours later, smelling of his cologne. I put my head in my hands. The world was tilting. Ronald Shaw, in my house. "He was just here," Bernie said, his voice trembling with a quiet rage of his own. "He brought her medicine not 10 minutes before you got here. I knew what it meant. I didn't know how to stop it. I couldn't stay. I couldn't be in that house, under that roof. I couldn't look at the walls that had seen their betrayal, breathe the air they were breathing. "We're leaving," I said, my voice hoarse. I stood up, my legs shaky. "What?" "Arthur, where are we going?" "To Julian's. We can't stay here tonight. I can't." I couldn't finish. I couldn't look at that bedroom door again. "What about them?" Bernie nodded toward the house. "Let them rot." I helped him up from the chair. He was frail, his bones like a bird's, but he leaned on me. I walked him to my truck, my eyes fixed forward, refusing to look back at the house. I opened the passenger door for him, and he climbed in slowly. As I walked around to the driver's side, the front door opened. "Arthur!" Miranda's voice. She was clutching a robe around herself, her hair a mess. "What are you doing?" Where are you taking your father? I froze, my hand on the truck's door handle. Get back inside, Miranda. My voice was a low growl I didn't recognize. What? What's wrong with you? You're home early. She was trying to look confused, but I could see the panic rising in her eyes. I said, get back inside. Just then, Ronald Shaw appeared behind her, buttoning his shirt. He looked at me, then at Bernie in the truck, and his face went white. Oh, hell. You! I snarled, taking a step toward him. You! Arthur, no! Bernie shouted from the truck. He's not worth it, son. Let's just go. Shaw took a step back, disappearing into the house. Miranda looked from me to the empty doorway, her face crumpling. Arthur, please. It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. I got in the truck and slammed the door. I started the engine, the roar of the V8 silencing her protests. I put the truck in reverse and spun out of the driveway, spraying gravel onto the lawn. I didn't look at her in the rearview mirror. I just drove. Julian lived on the other side of Salem. He opened the door in his bathrobe, his eyes wide with confusion. Arthur, Bernie, what on earth? I need a place to stay, Julian, I said, my voice breaking. Just for tonight. We had a pipe burst, a slab leak. It's a mess. Julian, a friend since high school, didn't question it. He just opened the door wider. Of course. Come in. The guest room is ready. Let me get you both a drink. I sat Bernie down on the sofa and accepted a glass of whiskey. The liquid burned all the way down, but it couldn't touch the cold, dead thing in my chest. I didn't sleep. I sat in Julian's guest room, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, while Bernie snored softly in the next bed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Ronald Shaw's smug face, Miranda's laugh. At 7 a.m., I got up. I showered, put on the same clothes from yesterday, and drank 3 cups of Julian's black, sludgy coffee. Arthur, are you sure you don't want me to come with you? Bernie asked, his face etched with worry. No, Dad. You stay here. Julian will look after you. I gripped his shoulder. This is something I have to do alone. I drove back to my house. Her car was still there. The front door was closed now. Locked, probably. I used my key. The house was quiet, but it smelled different. It smelled of him, of deceit. I found her in the kitchen. She was standing at the counter, calmly pouring a cup of coffee, as if it were any other morning. She was dressed in her pale blue bathrobe, her hair brushed. You're back, she said, her voice steady. She didn't look at me. Where is he? He left last night after you drove off. She turned, holding the mug. Arthur, we need to talk. Oh, we're going to talk. I pulled out a kitchen chair. The sound of it scraping on the tile was violent. I sat down. Start. She sighed, a long, theatrical sound, as if I were boring her. She sat down opposite me. I don't know what you think you saw. Don't you dare lie to me, Miranda. My voice was low, shaking with a rage I was barely holding back. I saw you. In our bed. With Ronald Shaw. Dad saw you. How long? She looked down into her coffee mug. For a moment I thought I saw a crack in her composure. Then it was gone. She looked up, and her eyes were cold. 2 years. The words hit me like a physical blow. 2 years? Not months. Years? About that. It started when you were in Springfield for Gregory's bypass. You were gone for 3 weeks. Ronald, he stopped by to check on me. We talked. It just happened. 2 years. 2 years of lies. 2 years of me driving back and forth to Springfield, worrying about my brother while she was... Why? I choked out the word. Why, Miranda? 40 years. Our children, our grandchildren. Why? She met my gaze, and the woman I married was gone. In her place was a stranger, hard and defiant. Because I was lonely, she snapped, her voice rising. Because you were never here. It was always Gregory. Gregory's sick. Gregory needs me. I have to go to Springfield. What about me, Arthur? When was the last time you worried about me? I worried about us. I worried about this family. I worked my whole life for this family. And while you were working, I was here, getting old, waiting. Ronald made me feel seen. He paid attention to me. He made me feel alive again. Alive? You call this living? Lying to me? Threatening my father? I did what I had to do, she said, her voice dropping to a cold whisper. I have a right to be happy. Happy? I slammed my fist on the kitchen table. The coffee mugs jumped. You threatened an 89-year-old man. You told him you'd throw him in a home. Your happiness is built on cruelty, Miranda. He was spying on me, poking his nose where it didn't belong. He's always been in our business, always judging. He's my father. He lives in my house. A house he helped me build. Our house, she shrieked. And maybe it's time he left. Just then, the back door opened. It was Bernie. He must have gotten restless at Julian's and walked home. He stood in the doorway, his hat in his hands, his eyes wide, taking in the scene. Arthur, what's going on? Miranda spun on him, her face contorted with fury. She had been cornered, and now she was lashing out. You! She screamed, pointing a trembling finger at him. This is your fault! You meddling, senile old fool! You couldn't just keep your mouth shut, could you? You had to ruin everything. Miranda, stop it, I yelled, jumping to my feet. But she was relentless, advancing on him. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family, you old gossip. You just couldn't stand to see me happy, could you? That's enough. Bernie stumbled back, his face ashen. He clutched his chest, his eyes wide with a sudden terrible panic. He gasped. He staggered, his hand flailing out for the wall, but he missed. He crumpled to the kitchen floor, a small, pained sound escaping his lips. Dad! I shoved past Miranda and dropped to my knees beside him. His skin was pale, clammy. His breathing was a ragged, shallow gasp. Dad! Oh, God! Bernie! I looked up at Miranda. She was frozen, her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with, was it fear or annoyance? Call 911, I screamed. Now, Miranda, call an ambulance. He's having a heart attack. She stared at me, unmoving. Now! My roar finally broke her paralysis. She fumbled for the phone on the wall, her hands shaking. Yes, I need an ambulance. My father-in-law, he's collapsed. I turned back to my father. I loosened his collar. Hang on, Dad. Just hang on. They're coming. You're going to be okay. His eyes rolled back and he gasped again, a terrible, wrenching sound. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and frantic activity. They wouldn't let me ride in the back. Miranda drove behind them, and I sat in the passenger seat, my hands clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I said nothing to her. She said nothing to me. At the hospital, they rushed him into the ER. Dr. Connolly, our family doctor for 20 years, met us in the hall. Arthur, what happened? We were arguing. He just collapsed. It's his heart, Connolly said grimly. We're doing everything we can. It's a massive infarction, Arthur. His age. Just save him, I begged. Please. He nodded and disappeared through the double doors. Hours passed. Miranda sat in the waiting room staring at her phone. Not crying, not praying. Just waiting. Finally, Dr. Connolly came out. We've stabilized him. He's in the ICU, but Arthur, you need to prepare yourself. His heart is severely damaged. The next few hours are critical. Can I see him? 5 minutes, that's all. He needs to rest. The ICU was a maze of machines and tubes. Bernie looked so small in the bed, an oxygen mask covering his face. I took his hand. It was cold. Dad? I'm here. His eyelids fluttered. He turned his head, his eyes struggling to focus on me. He tried to pull the mask off. No, Dad, leave it. He gripped my hand with a surprising surge of strength. He pulled the mask down an inch. His voice was a dry rattle. Be careful, Arthur. Don't talk, Dad. Rest. No, listen. He was fighting for every word. She was on the phone. With him. With Ronald. Dad, please. They wanted to get rid of me. His eyes were wide, terrified. The medicine, A nurse bustled in. Sir, you have to leave. He needs to rest. His vitals are dropping. I love you, Dad, I said, my voice breaking. Be careful, he whispered again. Then the nurse was gently but firmly pushing me out of the room. I walked back to the waiting room, my father's words echoing in my head. Get rid of me. The medicine. What did he mean? The waiting room was empty. Miranda was gone. I went to the nurse's station. My wife, Miranda Calloway. Was she just here? The nurse nodded. Yes, she left about 10 minutes ago. Said she needed to go home and get some things. Go home? My father was dying, and she went home to get things? I pulled out my phone. Voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sat down, the adrenaline draining away, leaving me exhausted and terrified. Get rid of me. It couldn't be. It was just the shock, the pain. He was confused. My phone buzzed. It was Julian. Arthur, any news on Bernie? It's bad, Julian. It's really bad. I told him what happened. There was a silence on the other end. Arthur, I don't know how to tell you this. Tell me what? I was just driving back from the hardware store. I saw Miranda. She wasn't at your house. What are you talking about? I saw her car parked outside Shaw's pharmacy. As I drove by, I saw her come out. She got into Ronald Shaw's car, Arthur. They drove off together, heading out of town. The phone felt heavy in my hand. My father was lying in an ICU bed fighting for his life, and she was with her lover. Arthur, are you still there? Yeah. My voice was dead. I'm here. Thanks, Julian. I have to go. I hung up. There was no more confusion, no more doubt, just a cold, hard certainty. My father wasn't confused. He was terrified, and he was right. I didn't leave the hospital. I sat in that plastic chair all night, drinking bitter coffee from a vending machine, watching the clock tick. Every beep from the ICU made me jump. Julian came by and sat with me for a few hours, a silent, steady presence. He didn't ask questions I couldn't answer. At 5:17 a.m., Dr. Connolly came out, his face drawn. He didn't have to say a word. I'm so sorry, Arthur. His heart, it just gave out. We did everything we could. The floor dropped out from under me. The man who taught me how to fish, how to build a bookcase, how to be a decent human being, gone. And his last moments were filled with fear and betrayal. I cried. I sat there in the sterile hallway and sobbed like a child. It was almost 10 a.m. when I finished with the hospital paperwork. I walked out of the main entrance, shielded my eyes against the sun, and saw her. Miranda, getting out of a cab. She was wearing fresh clothes, her hair was done. She hurried toward me, her face a mask of practiced concern. "Arthur, I'm so sorry, I had to. I fell asleep. I was so exhausted. How is he?" I looked at her, really looked at her, at the stranger wearing my wife's face. "He's dead, Miranda." "Oh no. Oh, Arthur, She reached for me. I stepped back. "Where were you?" "I told you, I was exhausted. I went home and just passed out." "Don't lie to me, not now." My voice was flat, devoid of all emotion. "Julian saw you? He saw you at Ronald's pharmacy? He saw you leave with him while my father was dying." Her face hardened. The fake grief vanished, replaced by that cold defiance. "So what if I did? I was upset. I needed someone to talk to." "Someone to comfort you? After you screamed at my father and watched him have a heart attack? After you threatened him for weeks?" "I didn't. It was an accident. He was old." "Get away from me." "Arthur, this is our family. We can get through this." "No. We are finished." I pointed a shaking finger at her. "You will not come to the funeral. You will not speak to my children. You will pack your things, and you will get out of my house. If you are still there when I get back, I will call the police and have you removed for trespassing." "You can't do that. That house is half mine." "Try me." I walked past her, bumping her shoulder. "You are not to come near me or my family ever again. You're done." The funeral was a gray, drizzly affair. The Salem sky wept with us. Bernie was well loved. The small chapel was standing room only. Old friends, neighbors, men I didn't even know who'd worked with him decades ago. My children stood beside me. Mitchell, my son, a lawyer from Augusta, had his arm around me. His face was a thundercloud. My daughter Caroline flew in from Charlotte. She was crying silently, her husband's arm around her. "Dad, where's Mom?" Caroline whispered, looking around the chapel. "Why isn't she here?" I had told them on the phone. The basics. "Your mother and we're separating. She won't be coming." I could see the questions in their eyes, the confusion, the hurt, but they didn't press. Not here. Not now. We buried him next to my mother, under the big oak tree he'd always loved. As the first shovelful of dirt hit the casket, the finality of it crushed me. He was gone, and I was alone. We went back to the house. It felt hollow, empty. Julian's wife had brought over a ham and some potato salad, but no one was hungry. My grandchildren were running in the backyard, their laughter a strange, bright sound in the heavy silence. Mitchell, Caroline, and I sat on the back porch. Bernie's rocking chair was still. "Okay, Dad," Mitchell said, his lawyer voice taking over. "No more evasions. What the hell is going on? Why is Mom not here? And what really happened to Grandpa?" I took a deep breath. The drizzle had stopped, leaving the air smelling of damp earth. I told them. Everything. I told them about the trips to Springfield, Miranda's coldness, the phone calls, the warning from Bernie. I told them about coming home, about finding the door open. I told them what I saw in my bedroom. Caroline gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "No, not with Mr. Shaw. He came to my wedding." "Yes," I said, my voice thick. "With him." I told them about the argument, about Miranda screaming at Bernie, threatening him, about his collapse, and then I told them his last words. He said they wanted to get rid of him. He said something about the medicine. He was terrified, and I told him to rest. My voice broke. Mitchell's face, which had been pale, was now red with a controlled fury. She threatened him? She said she'd put him in a home? Yes, that's why he never told me. He was scared. He was trying to protect me, and he was scared. My God, Caroline whispered, tears streaming down her face. She killed him. The argument, the stress, she killed him. I think it's worse than that, I said. His last words. The medicine. And Miranda, she was with Shaw, the pharmacist, while Bernie was dying. It wasn't comfort she was after. It was an alibi, or a new plan. Dad, what are you implying? Mitchell asked, his voice sharp. I'm implying my father didn't die of a heart attack. I'm implying he was murdered. A heavy silence fell over the porch. The only sound was the distant chatter of the children. Okay, Mitchell said, standing up. He was in lawyer mode now. All emotion was packed away. If that's what we're thinking, we need proof. We can't go to the police with just a deathbed premonition. What are we looking for? Caroline asked, wiping her eyes. Anything. Anything at all, Mitchell said. Grandpa was a meticulous man. He kept records of everything. Let's start in his room. We went to Bernie's room. It was simple. A bed, a dresser he'd built himself, an armchair. It smelled of him, a faint scent of wood shavings and old-fashioned soap. We started searching. We looked through the dresser drawers, old tax returns, receipts, photos. Nothing. We looked in his closet. We checked his toolbox, thinking he might have hidden something. There's nothing here, Mitch, Caroline said, sitting on the bed, her shoulders slumped. Keep looking. I ran my hand along the side of the mattress. It was an old-fashioned spring mattress, heavy. Help me with this. Mitchell and I lifted the mattress, and there, lying on the box spring, was a small, black, leather-bound notebook, the kind he used to use to track his carpentry jobs. What is it? Caroline asked. I opened it. The first page was dated 2 years ago. My hands shook as I read my father's familiar, spidery handwriting. He had recorded everything. October 14th. Arthur left for Springfield. R.S. Ronald Shaw came by at 8 p.m., stayed 2 hours, heard laughter from their room. October 19th. M. Miranda left at 3 p.m., said she was going to the grocer, came back at 7 p.m., smelled of perfume, not hers. November 2nd. Heard M on the phone. He'll be gone at least a week. We can meet every day. Page after page, it detailed the affair with military precision. Dates, times, excuses. My stomach churned. He'd been living with this, watching this, for 2 solid years. Then the entries changed. They became more frequent, more fearful. January 12th. Heard her on the phone with R.S. I can't take this old man anymore, he knows. He's always watching. If he tells Arthur, it's over for us. I'm scared. January 14th. M gave me my evening pills. One of them had a strange taste. Bitter. I pretended to take it, palmed it, threw it in the toilet when she left. My stomach has been upset all week since I took the last one. My blood ran cold. Caroline let out a small, strangled sob. I turned to the last page. The entry was dated the day before he died. January 15th. I overheard them talking in the kitchen. She thought I was napping. R.S. was here. She said, if he just went away, it would be better for all of us. He's so frail. And R.S. said, A small mistake with his medication. Who would know? Then she said, Arthur would sell the house. We could finally be together. They are planning something. I have to tell Arthur. I have to warn him when he gets back. I looked up at my children. Their faces were pale with horror. Oh my God, Mitchell whispered. They were poisoning him. That's premeditated murder. The front door slammed. Arthur, I'm not going to be thrown out of my own home. We need to talk about dividing our assets. Miranda's voice echoed up the hall. Mitchell, Caroline, and I looked at each other. Mitchell tucked the notebook into the waistband of his pants, at the small of his back, and pulled his shirt down over it. We walked out into the living room. Miranda was standing there, her arms crossed, a look of grim determination on her face. When she saw Mitchell and Caroline, she faltered. Oh, you're still here. We're still here, Mom, Caroline said, her voice dripping with ice. Don't you call me Mom? Miranda snapped. Not after you let your father ban me from my own husband's funeral? Grandpa's funeral, Mitchell corrected, his voice dangerously quiet. You mean the man you were actively trying to murder? Miranda's face went blank. What? What are you talking about? That's insane. Your father is grieving, We found it, Mom, Caroline said, her voice breaking. We found Grandpa's notebook. The color drained from Miranda's face. She looked from Caroline to Mitchell, to me. She knew. That. She struggled for words. That's nothing. That's the rambling of a senile old man. It's not proof of anything. He wrote about the pills, Miranda, I said, stepping toward her. He wrote about the bitter taste. He wrote about you and Ronald plotting to make him go away. He wrote about you wanting to sell the house. She backed away, her eyes darting toward the door. You can't prove any of that. It's his word against mine. He was confused. He was old. He wasn't confused, Mitchell said, blocking her path to the door. He was terrified, and he wrote it all down. Every date, every visit, every threat. We're taking this to the police. For a second, she looked utterly trapped. Then a cold, reptilian smile spread across her lips. Go ahead. You don't have a thing. You have a notebook full of nonsense. It's inadmissible. You won't find anything. And when this is over, I will sue all of you for slander. She shoved past Mitchell and stormed out the front door, slamming it so hard the windows rattled. We stood in the silence, her confident, chilling laugh seeming to echo in the air. That night, none of us slept. Mitchell stayed up, making notes, building a timeline. Caroline tried to rest on the sofa, but I could hear her crying softly. I sat on the porch in Bernie's rocker, the notebook heavy in my lap. I read it over and over, the words burning into my brain. I'm going to get some air, Mitchell said around 2 a.m. I need to clear my head. We'll go to the police station first thing in the morning. I'll be right here, I said. I must have dozed off. The creak of a floorboard jerked me awake. The house was pitch dark. I looked at the clock on the stove. 3:15 a.m. Mitch? I whispered. Silence. Then I heard it again. A soft thud from the back of the house. From Bernie's room. I grabbed the heavy iron poker from the fireplace. I moved down the hall, my heart pounding. Caroline was still asleep on the sofa. I pushed open the door to Bernie's room. It was tossed. The mattress was dragged halfway off the bed. The dresser drawers were pulled out, their contents dumped on the floor. I ran to the living room. Mitch! Caroline, wake up! Caroline sat up, blinking. Dad? What's wrong? Someone was in the house. I ran back to the porch. to the small table where I'd left the notebook. It was gone. My blood ran cold. I searched frantically, throwing cushions off chairs, checking under the rocker. Nothing. "What is it, Dad?" Mitchell said, running back inside, his face pale. "I just saw a car speeding off the end of the street. It looked like Shaw's." "The notebook," I said, my voice hollow. "It's gone. They came back for it." Mitchell slammed his fist into the wall. "Damn it! Damn it! That was our case! That was everything!" Caroline sank onto the sofa, her face in her hands. "What do we do now? They have it. They'll destroy it." She was so confident, I whispered, remembering Miranda's cold smile. She knew we didn't have anything else. She was just waiting to get it back. We stood there in the wrecked room, the silence of our stolen proof heavier than any words. We had nothing. The fluorescent lights of the Salem police precinct hummed. The place smelled of burnt coffee and old paper. We sat across from Detective Patrick Riley, a man whose face looked like it had been carved from tired granite. "Let me get this straight," Riley said, leaning back in his squeaking chair. He'd been listening for 20 minutes, his expression unchanged. "You believe your wife, Mrs. Calloway, was having an affair with a local pharmacist, Mr. Shaw." "We know she was," Mitchell said, leaning forward. "We saw them." Riley held up a hand. "You believe they conspired to murder your father, Mr. Bernard Calloway, by poisoning him. Your father then had a heart attack, which you believe was caused by this poison. And your entire case was based on a private notebook written by your father, which you no longer have." "They stole it," I insisted. "Last night, they broke in and took it." "You believe they broke in and took it," Riley corrected. "You didn't see them. You have no security footage, no fingerprints. You have a domestic dispute. A bad one, I'll grant you. But you don't have a murder." "My father's last words," I said, my voice rising. "He told me they wanted to get rid of him. He told me to be careful." "Mr. Calloway," Riley said, his voice softening slightly. "Your father had just suffered a massive coronary. He was on heavy medication. He was in shock. People say things that are confused. You're grieving. You're angry about the affair. It's understandable to want to blame someone." "He wasn't confused," Mitchell said, his voice cold. "And I'm a lawyer. I know what constitutes evidence. We are formally requesting an investigation into the death of Bernard Calloway. And we are requesting a warrant for the pharmacy records of Ronald Shaw." Riley sighed. He scribbled a note. "I'll make some calls. I can't promise anything. An affair isn't grounds to start a homicide investigation, and without that notebook, I've got nothing to take to a judge. I'm sorry, my hands are tied." We walked out into the harsh morning light, defeated. They were going to get away with it. We spent 2 days in a legal hell. Mitchell was on the phone constantly, calling colleagues, trying to find a judge who would listen. I just sat on the porch, staring at the empty street. On the 3rd day, my phone rang. It was Detective Riley. "Mr. Calloway, I thought you'd want to know. We're bringing Mr. Shaw in for questioning." My heart leapt. You are? For my father?" "No," Riley said. "We got an anonymous tip. From let's call it a disgruntled customer. Seems Mr. Shaw has a bit of a gambling problem. The tipster said he's been shorting prescriptions, stealing narcotics from his own inventory to sell on the side and cover his debts." My stomach sank. A gambling problem? Narcotics? "Yeah. We're executing a search warrant on his pharmacy as we speak, checking his inventory logs against his sales. Looks like we've got him on felony theft and distribution. It's not what you were looking for, but the man's a criminal. We're going to put him away. Detective, don't you see? I said, standing up. This is them. This is her. It's a false trail. They planted that tip. They're giving you a different crime to pin on him. They want you to arrest him for drugs, so you'll stop looking at him for murder. There was a long pause. Mr. Calloway, Riley said, his voice tired again. That's a hell of a theory. But I have a solid, actionable tip leading to a felony arrest. You have a suspicion. I have to follow the evidence I have. This drug case? It's real. We're finding discrepancies already. So you're just dropping it? You're letting them win? I'm following the case in front of me, Riley said, and hung up. I threw my phone across the porch. It shattered against a support beam. They were smarter than us. They'd sacrificed Shaw on a lesser charge to make the bigger one go away. And it was working. We're done, I said to Mitchell when he came out onto the porch. They gave him to Riley on a drug charge. Riley's taking the bait. It's over. Mitchell cursed, kicking the railing. They're insulating themselves. If he's a known drug offender, it makes any poison theory look like he just got sloppy, not like he was targeting Grandpa. It's brilliant. And sick. We sat in silence for a long time. The fight was gone. Arthur? We both looked up. Our neighbor Julian was standing at the bottom of the porch steps, twisting his hat in his hands. Julian, come on up. I don't want to intrude, he said. I heard about the break-in, and well, I might have something. What is it? I asked, my voice flat. My new security system, the one my son bought me. It's got one of those cameras that covers the street. He looked embarrassed. I was worried about you, Arthur. So I was checking the footage from the other night, the night of the break-in. Mitchell and I were both on our feet. What did you see, Julian? Mitchell asked. Well, it's dark, but around 3:10 a.m. He held out a small digital tablet. Look here. He pressed play. We saw the dark, grainy footage of our street, and then a car. It slowed down, its lights off, and parked 2 houses down. A figure got out. They were wearing a hoodie, but the way they walked. It's him, I whispered. That's Shaw. We watched as the figure slipped between the houses toward our backyard. 20 minutes later, the figure ran back, jumped in the car, and sped away. But here's the kicker, Julian said, fast-forwarding. Look at 3:45 a.m. Another car. This one pulled right into my driveway. It was Miranda's car. A figure got out, unmistakably Miranda, walked to the car Shaw had been in, and appeared to put something inside. Then she got back in her own car and drove off. She was the lookout, Mitchell breathed. He did the break-in, and she was waiting for the handoff. That's conspiracy. That's tampering with evidence. Julian looked at us. I also have footage from the day Bernie died, the day you called me from the hospital. He punched a few buttons. Here, this is right after you left with Bernie in the ambulance. We watched. Miranda's car pulled into the driveway. She got out. She wasn't gone for more than 5 minutes. Then she came out, got in her car, and drove away. She told me she was at home, getting things, I said. And here, Julian said, his face grim. This is 20 minutes later. Ronald Shaw's car. It pulled into the driveway. He went inside. He was in there for almost an hour. Then he came out, carrying a small box, and drove away. They were cleaning up, Mitchell said, his eyes blazing. They were removing the evidence, the pills, the vials, whatever they used. I took the tablet from Julian's hand. This is it. This is what we needed. We didn't call. We drove straight to the precinct and walked past the front desk. We're here to see Riley, now. The desk sergeant, seeing the look on Mitchell's face, just pointed. We burst into Riley's office. He was on the phone, his feet up. I'll call you back. He dropped his feet. Gentlemen, I told you, I'm busy with the Shaw drug case. It's a slam dunk. You're being played, Mitchell said, slamming the tablet down on the desk. Play the first video. Riley sighed and pressed the button. He watched. His eyes narrowed. He watched the figure in the hoodie. He watched Miranda's car. That's Shaw's car, and that's Mrs. Calloway's, Riley said, his voice now flat. That's them on the night of the break-in, I said. The night our evidence was stolen. Now play the second one, Mitchell ordered. Riley watched the footage from the day of the heart attack. Miranda's quick trip, Shaw's hour-long visit, and him leaving with a box. Riley leaned back. He was in your house for an hour while your father was in the ER. They were destroying evidence, Detective, Mitchell said, leaning over the desk. The false drug tip? That was them. They fed you a story to cover their tracks. They are not just drug thieves. They are murderers. And they are tampering with a crime scene. Right there, on that video. Riley was silent for a long time. He re-watched both videos. The drug charges are good, he said, almost to himself. We can hold him on that. The break-in, the conspiracy, this is enough. He looked at me, his eyes hard. This is enough to argue for the exhumation. A judge will sign this. They overplayed their hand. So do it, I said. I am. He picked up his phone. Get me Judge Allister. Tell him it's urgent. And get a unit to Shaw's pharmacy. I don't care about the inventory. Seal it. It's a homicide scene. And find out where Miranda Calloway is staying. Put a tail on her. Now. Getting the judge's order was one thing. Living through it was another. 2 days later, I stood at the edge of my father's grave, the grass still new and tender. Mitchell was on one side of me, Caroline on the other. A grim-faced team from the medical examiner's office was there, along with Detective Riley and a few uniformed officers to keep the curious cemetery-goers at bay. It was a cold, bright morning. The sound of the shovels hitting the dirt was a physical pain. It felt wrong. A desecration. Dad, you don't have to watch this, Caroline whispered, slipping her hand into mine. I do, I said. I have to. For him. When the casket was finally raised, I had to turn away. The sight of that polished wood, damp with earth, was too much. Mitchell put a firm hand on my back. They're taking him to the state lab in Augusta, Riley said, walking over. He was respectful, his voice low. The ME will run a full toxicology panel. We should know something in a few days, maybe a week. And them? I asked. Shaw is in custody on the drug charges. We're holding him without bail, pending this investigation. Miranda is under surveillance. She hasn't tried to run. She's confident. She hired a lawyer. She thinks she's won, I said bitterly. Let's see how confident she is when the lab report comes back. The days that followed were the longest of my life. I sat by the phone. I paced the house. I rocked in Bernie's chair. Every time the phone rang, my heart seized. Caroline had to fly back to her family. But Mitchell stayed. He sat at the kitchen table working on his laptop, a silent, furious presence. It was a Tuesday, a week after the exhumation. The phone rang. It was Riley. "Arthur, can you and your son come down to the station?" His voice was all business. "Just tell me. I'd rather do this in person." We were there in 10 minutes. Riley was waiting in the interview room. He had a file open on the table. "The lab report came back an hour ago," he said. He didn't look at us. He just read from the page. "The ME found significant non-therapeutic levels of digoxin in your father's system." "Digoxin?" Mitchell asked. "What's that?" "It's a heart medication," Riley said, looking up. "A powerful one. In small, controlled doses, it treats heart failure. In high doses, or given to a healthy heart, it causes arrhythmia, nausea, confusion, and ultimately, a massive, fatal heart attack." I sank into the metal chair. He didn't have a heart condition." "I know," Riley said. "I pulled his medical records. Dr. Connolly confirmed. Bernie Calloway had the heart of a 60-year-old. He was not, and never had been, prescribed digoxin." "Shaw," I whispered. "A pharmacist. He'd have access to it." "He did," Riley said, tapping the file. "We went back to his pharmacy. This time we weren't looking for narcotics. We were looking for digoxin. His logs are a mess. He's been ordering bottles of it, with no corresponding prescriptions. He's been faking the inventory. And the box he carried out of your house? We found it in his garage. It was full of your father's prescription bottles, all of them empty. He was replacing my father's real medicine with poison," I said, the horror of it settling on me. "Worse," Riley said. "He was adding it. The ME thinks they were giving him small doses for weeks, trying to break down his health, make it look natural. The bitter taste your father wrote about. But he was stronger than they thought. He started spitting out the pills. So that day, the day of the argument, they panicking. They gave him a massive, lethal dose." "They murdered him," Mitchell said, his voice shaking. "Yes," Riley said, closing the file. "They did. We are upgrading the charges. This is no longer a drug case. This is first-degree murder." "We're moving now," Riley said, grabbing his jacket. "We're arresting Miranda Calloway first. She's at a motel on the highway. We'll serve Shaw in his holding cell." "I want to be there," I said. Riley looked at me. "Arthur, that's not—" "I'm not going to interfere," I said, my voice hard as steel. "But I am going to see it. After what she did to my father, I'm going to see her face." Riley hesitated, then nodded. "Stay in your car. Don't get out. My cruiser will be behind you." We drove to the seedy motel on the edge of town. Julian, who I'd called, was already there, parked across the street. He'd followed her there. He nodded at me grimly as we pulled up. We watched as two cruisers, lights off, slipped into the parking lot. Riley and 3 other officers went to the door of room 112. They knocked. "Police, open up!" We saw the curtains twitch. Riley nodded. One of the officers used a battering ram. The door splintered open. They went in. We heard a short, high-pitched shriek. A minute later, they brought her out. Miranda. She was in handcuffs, wearing sweatpants and a stained t-shirt. Her hair was greasy. The cold, confident woman from my living room was gone. In her place was this small, pathetic creature. Her eyes scanned the parking lot and found my truck. She saw me. "Arthur!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "Arthur, you can't let them do this! Tell them! It was him! It was all Ronald! He made me! He—" "Save it, Mrs. Calloway," Riley said, pushing her gently toward the cruiser. She kept screaming my name as they put her in the back of the car. I just watched, my face numb. I felt nothing. No pity, no satisfaction. Just empty. We drove back to the jail. Riley met us at the entrance. We just served Shaw in his cell. He's not saying a word. He's waiting for his lawyer. It doesn't matter, I said. You have them. We have them. Ronald Shaw held out for exactly 48 hours. His lawyer, seeing the toxicology report, the pharmacy logs, and the video footage, knew the game was up. He was looking for a deal. Riley called me and Mitchell back to the station. Shaw's talking. He's pleading guilty to second-degree murder and conspiracy in exchange for testimony against Miranda. He's painting her as the mastermind. Which she was, I said. That's what he's saying. Riley opened a new file. His confession. It's ugly. He laid it out. It was just as we'd pieced together. The affair, Bernie's discovery, the threats, then the plan. It was Miranda's idea. She was tired of me being gone, tired of being stuck with Bernie. She wanted the house, the money, and a new life with Shaw. The plan was slow poisoning. Shaw would mix small amounts of digoxin into Bernie's heart medication, a beta blocker he was prescribed. The symptoms, dizziness, nausea, confusion, would be blamed on old age. They'd increase the dose slowly until his heart just stopped. But Bernie was tough, I whispered. He was, Riley said. He started suspecting. He wrote in his notebook that he was palming the pills. When Miranda realized he wasn't getting worse, she panicked. She told Shaw they had to act. The day of the heart attack, when she confronted me, she knew I was home. She called Shaw. He came over before I got there. They forced a massive, lethal dose down my father's throat. They crushed the pills in his applesauce. The argument I had with her. Bernie's collapse. That was just the poison taking hold. Her screaming at him was just a coincidence. A cruel, final twist. She was feeding him breakfast, I said, remembering. She said he was eating. He was, Riley said. He was eating his own death warrant. Her leaving with Shaw while he was in the ER. They were celebrating. They thought they'd done it. And when he died, they returned to the house to scrub the evidence. I closed my eyes. The image of my father, sitting at the kitchen table, Miranda smiling as she fed him a spoonful of poisoned applesauce. It would never leave me. The trial was 6 months later. It was the talk of Salem. The courtroom was packed every day. I sat in the front row with Mitchell and Carolyn. Ronald Shaw, true to his word, took the stand. He was thin, pale, his eyes hollow. He laid out the whole sordid story, never once looking at Miranda. He detailed how they mixed the poison, how they planned, how she pushed him, how she ridiculed him when he got scared. Then, Miranda's lawyer tried to paint her as the victim, a lonely, neglected wife, manipulated by a sophisticated, predatory pharmacist. But when Miranda took the stand, her story fell apart. She was cold, calculating. She couldn't hide the contempt in her voice. The jury saw it. The worst part was the cross-examination. The prosecutor held up the little black notebook. Mrs. Calloway, is this the nonsense you told your children about? Is this the rambling of a senile old man? He read the last entry aloud. I have to tell Arthur. He never got the chance, did he, Mrs. Calloway? Because you and Mr. Shaw murdered him first. Miranda just stared, her face a mask of stone. No remorse, no regret, just coldness. It was in that moment I knew the woman I married, the mother of my children. had been gone for a very, very long time. The jury was out for less than 2 hours. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of murder in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. A gasp went through the courtroom. Caroline burst into tears, a sound of pure, agonized relief. Mitchell put his arm around me, his own body shaking. Miranda didn't react. She just stared at the judge. At sentencing, Ronald Shaw got 15 years, as per his plea deal. The judge looked at Miranda. "You not only took a life," he said, his voice booming in the quiet room. "You betrayed a sacred trust. You preyed on the elderly. You manipulated your family. You did it all for greed. You are the architect of this entire tragedy." He sentenced her to 20 years in prison without the possibility of parole. As they led her away in chains, she finally looked at me. Her eyes were full of a burning, terrible hatred. It was the last time I ever saw her. I couldn't stay in that house. I couldn't sleep in that town. Every street corner, every shop, held a ghost. I sold the house. I sold it for less than it was worth, just to be rid of it. I gave away the furniture, the dishes, the life we had built. The only things I kept were my clothes, my tools, and my father's carpentry. The dresser he built, the small table from his room, and his rocking chair. I packed them in a U-Haul and drove to Augusta. Mitchell and his wife had found me a small apartment near their house. It was quiet. It was new. It had no memories. My grandchildren, Ryan and Chloe, helped me unpack. They were young enough that the tragedy was just a sad story about Grandma. They were what mattered now. I set up Bernie's rocking chair by the window. I sat in it, and for the first time in almost a year, I felt a tremor of something I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't joy. But it was peace. Years passed. Life found a new rhythm. I helped Mitchell with his yard work. I picked up my grandchildren from school. I taught Ryan how to use a hammer. I even started taking on small carpentry jobs for the neighbors. I learned that Ronald Shaw had been killed in prison. A shiv in the yard. Something about a drug debt. I felt nothing. Then, 5 years after the trial, a letter arrived. The return address was a state penitentiary. My hands shook as I opened it. It was from Miranda. "Arthur, I know you will probably burn this. I deserve that. What I did, there are no words for it. There is no apology. I am not the woman you married. I haven't been for a long time. I was angry and vain and bored. Ronald, he didn't manipulate me. I manipulated him. I used his weakness. It was my idea, all of it. I wanted your father gone. I wanted you to myself. I wanted the money. I am in therapy here. I see his face every night. Bernie's. He was always so kind to me. And I poisoned him. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I could never ask for that. I needed you to know that I know. I know what I am, and I am sorry." I read the letter twice. Was it real? A ploy for parole? Or the genuine remorse of a broken woman? It didn't matter. I folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and mailed it to Caroline. "This is for you, if you want it," I wrote. "I don't." I never replied. The pandemic came. The world shut down. I was 75 in the high-risk category. I was isolated in my apartment for months. It was a time of terrible quiet. Just me and my thoughts. Me and the ghosts. I sat in Bernie's chair, night after night, watching the empty streets. I thought about Miranda's letter. I thought about the trial. I thought about my father's last, terrified words. The hate I carried. It was a stone. It was weighing me down. It was making me old and bitter. I was so tired of being angry. One night, I pulled out a piece of paper. Miranda, I received your letter. I don't know if your remorse is real. It doesn't matter to me. I will never forgive you for what you did to my father. Some things are unforgivable. I will never forgive you for what you did to our children. But I am done hating you. It's too heavy. I am letting it go. Not for you, for me. I hope you find whatever peace you can. This will be the last time I ever write to you. This is the end of it. Arthur, I mailed it the next day. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. 2 years later, Caroline called me. She was crying, but it was a quiet, tired cry. Dad, I got a call from the prison. Mom, she died this morning. Complications from diabetes. She's gone. I sat down in the rocker. Gone. It was all, finally, over. How do you feel? She asked. I'm at peace, honey, I said, and I was surprised to find that I meant it. I hope she is too. Today I am 77. My apartment smells of sawdust and coffee. My grandson Ryan is 16 now. He's tall, with his grandfather's hands. He's in my small workshop, carefully sanding the edge of a small wooden box. He's using Bernie's old tools. I'm teaching him, just like my father taught me. Is this right, Grandpa? He asks, holding it up. It's perfect, son, I say, running my hand over the smooth wood. Your great-grandfather would be proud. I sit on the porch of my small apartment, in Bernie's old rocking chair. It's weathered. It has scars. The varnish is worn, but it's strong. It holds me just as he did. Ryan brings the finished box out to me. Inside there's a small folded piece of paper. It's the last entry from Bernie's notebook. I'd asked Mitchell for a copy. I have to tell Arthur. I look at my grandson, a good, strong young man. I look at the box he made. You told me, Dad, I whisper to the empty air. You told me, and I listened. The sun is warm on my face. The chair creaks, a familiar, comforting sound. And for the first time in a long, long time, my heart is quiet. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.